Hey guys, DJ here at Top Tech Cards and Games. Today I'm going to do a 60 card Infernoid deck profile for you. I think this deck's really sweet. If you manage to draw that Grass Looks Greener, or is that what that's called? Great question, you guys. That Grass Looks Greener, nailed it. If you draw that card, you're basically, I'm not going to say guaranteed to win the game because there's still a fairly high amount of RNG to say that you mill good Infernoids or Snow. But if you hit that card, your odds of winning the game are fairly high. You get to play Left Arm Offering, which I've thought for a while was a card that was just waiting to be disgustingly broken. And in this deck, it is, because getting rid of 3 cards from your hand is significantly less powerful than milling, like 20 cards. The other deck that I think it's good in is Lightsworn, where you can play that Grass Looks Greener and Ties of the Brethren to set up a big mill play as well. So you're going to use a combination of Zodiac cards and the Infernoid cards to set yourself up. I built this list to try to have the most live openings. There's some lists that can do some more powerful things, but they have a lower chance of opening playable, so I've maxed out on all the ways basically to get yourself a playable opening hand, I think, and it's been working pretty well for me. It's given us a fairly consistent deck where we really shouldn't have one. Let's just get into the monsters. First, we have 3 copies of Decatron. Decatron's a foolish burial for the deck. It also kind of creates a small sort of lock. Your opponent's going to basically be able to kill it to prevent you from negating unless your setup is really good. But you get to dump Deviati or Anuchu to create a negation effect, or dump a regular Infernoid just to gain its destruction effect. So it's just a really versatile card. It's a tuner. It lets us make Omegas. That's the only sinker that we're playing to make with it, but there are other options we could use. Next we have 3 copies of Harmadic and 3 copies of Patrulia. Bear with me while I read all of their names because I don't actually know what they are. Harmadic is a monster destruction effect. Patrulia is a spell trap destruction effect. They're easy to summon. These ones you just have to remove 1 monster from your graveyard, 1 Infernoid monster, to special from your hand, so they're able to put a lot of the beat down on the board. And they're low levels to get you around the restrictions on the Infernoid monsters. I guess if you guys don't know, all of the Infernoid monsters that have a special summon effect require the total levels and ranks of your monsters in play to be 8 or below for you to special summon them. Moving on, we have a couple different big ones. We have 2 copies of Sightsemus. Great question, guys. This guy's pretty cool. He's got a lot of attack. These bigger ones you can special summon from your graveyard, so if you mill them with that Grass Looks Greener, you're set up from there. When this card attacks at the end of the battle phase, you can remove another monster, or a card actually. Banish 1 card on the field. So you can banish a monster, spell, trap, whatever after this attack. So if you're running into something fairly large in play, you can run over one of their smaller monsters and then banish the big card. The other 2 obs, we have 2 copies of Deviati and 2 copies of Onunku? Great question. Great question. I enjoy struggling to get these names right. I think it's a ton of fun. When you special summon this guy, he's a Dark Hole. When you special summon her, she's a Heavy Storm. One of them negates monster effects while it's in play. Yeah, this guy negates spell or monster. Holy crap. This guy negates monster effects. This guy negates spell and traps. By attributing monsters while they're in play. They do require you to remove 3 Infernoid monsters from your graveyard or your hand. They can remove from hand too, but since you're playing Left Arm Offering and that Grass Looks Greener, you're much more likely to get the effect from your bin. But yeah, you contribute a monster and negate the activation of a card and banish it for both of them. Like I said, this one spell and traps, this one monsters. The Heavy Storm effect for this card is really sick because it doesn't hit your void spell or traps, so you're able to keep all those in play to do whatever you would like with. We also have 2 one-ofs, a copy of Attendel and a copy of Shet, I guess. This card's effect's largely irrelevant. It gets rid of a card from your opponent's extra deck. I guess that has the chance to be good. We're mostly playing him for his level. He's level 6, which lets us Void Feast for him plus 2 copies of Decatron to give us both monster and spell trap negation. Attendel creates big damage pushes. He's a 2800 with the BLS effect, where if he kills an opponent's monster, he can attack again in succession. So that's our Infernoid package. I think it's 17 of them. You could arguably play more copies of a couple of them, maybe another Sightsemus. If you're worried about milling, so you're still able to make the play you want to, maybe a second Jet, but he kind of sucks. But that's basically all I would do for the Infernoid monsters. Like I said, maybe play 1, 2 more. We also have 3 copies of Fairy Tale Snow to go with our graveyard. synergies. Since we're filling up our bin, we have a lot of spell cards that we can't use with the Infernoids anyway. Snow is one of the best pieces of interaction in the format. You're able to keep activating the effect, so your opponent will have a hard time interacting with it. And a Book of Moon is a really strong ability right now, and I think this card is great. I've talked about it at length in Lightsworn and other decks. I just think it's incredible. We have 3 copies of Teratop and a Takatomborg. These guys set up your Zodiac plays by getting Invoker. They make Totem Bird to protect your board, and they make... what is that guy's name? Breaksword. I don't know why I had to pull him out to figure out what his name was. They make Breaksword to clear any sort of problem cards or floodgates your opponents have. They're really just all-around good cards. In 60 cards, you're very unlikely to draw Takatomborg, so when you do, you can complain more. That's what I've decided to do anyway. Like I said, they get the Zodiac cards, which set up our engine by letting us make Kagasuchi to have another way to mill cards, or just do the regular Zodiac play where you Trident and Emerald to dig another card deeper to look for that Grasslook Screener. So we have 3 copies of Rat, and I'm playing 2 copies of Whiptail. Partially because when you're mass milling, you're likely to hit a copy and get rid of it. But the other part is that I'm maxing out on cards like Tenki and Barrage, even though we have a minimal number of targets for them, just because we want to open live, whether that's by playing Grass or by making Kagasuchi. We definitely want to open live as often as possible. So we're playing maximum copies of those cards, and with that I thought 2 copies of Whiptail gave us a little more extra value out of our Tenkis and Barrages. So that's the whole monster suite. Like I said, that Grasslook Screener, the card that really made this deck a thing right now. I think you actually could get away with playing like a 40 or 50 card version of the deck. 40 card might be a little rougher, but the Zodiac mills in there are a lot more powerful. The difference is it's a lot harder to fuel all of your Infernoids when some of them require 3 removes in a smaller deck. So I went with the Cookie Cutter 60 card variant with 3 of that Grasslook Screener. What this card does is let you mill cards from the top of your deck, so send cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard, until you have the same number of cards in deck as your opponent. If you go first and your opponent was playing a 40 card deck, they'll have 35 in their deck, and if you open this in your first 5, you'll have 55 in your deck, so you'll get to mill 20 cards right off the bat. If you have the left arm offering forward, that'll be 19 cards. And, whatever other deck thinning you do. But, even if you're milling like 10 cards off of this, that's going to give you a lot of powerful options, whether that's by milling you Infernoid cards or hitting Snow. We also have 3 copies of left arm offering, as I said before, because this card just searches that Grasslook Screener. It also can search up like a Regeki in a really dire situation if that's what you need. 3 copies of Pot of Desires. We're playing 60 cards. Banishing the 10 was already not a real cost in most decks. In this deck, it's especially not a cost. The downside is that you can hit your Zodiac combo, but variance might be on your side when you have this many cards in your deck where you miss Rats, or you can just play without them in some games. It is what it is. This card also just helps you dig towards that Grasslook Screener, though that could be less relevant when you've banished 10 cards from your deck. I think it's too good to play in a deck like this where you have so many cards and you're just looking for your power spells. We have 3 copies of Barrage and 3 copies of Tenki. These round out our cards to try to make our openings fairly smooth. We have 3 of each so that we're going to hopefully either get a Rat play by summoning Rat, Teratop, Barrage, or Tenki. So that's 12 different ways to get to a Rat turn 1. Or we're going to get to Grasslook Screener, which we have 6 with. So we have about 18 cards that we're looking to open. Between that, I think we have a decent chance of getting there with something that's going to help us. Obviously, normal summon Rat off Tenki isn't nearly as good as playing Grasslook Screener, but you have to find as many ways to get into the game with this deck as you can, so you're not just bricking all the time. I also have 3 copies of Instant Fusion because it's just an extremely strong card, letting us make a rank 4 so we can deal with whatever threats our opponent has in play. We also have a nice suite of Void spells. We have 3 copies of Void Vanishment, 3 Void Imagination, and 1 copy of Void Seer. This is kind of like my body as a shield, I guess, is how I would describe it. It lets you target an Infernoid monster and the target's unaffected by card effects for the turn. You also can remove it from your graveyard to prevent a destruction effect that would destroy one of your Infernoid monsters. I can't remember if that was how that was worded for the graveyard effect. So this isn't a great card by any stretch of the imagination, but it is good enough that we want to play it so we can search it up with Void Vanishment. Void Vanishment lets us discard a card from our hand to search our deck for a Void spell or trap. It's a continuous spell, so it sits in play. You can't normal or special summon for the rest of the turn unless it's an Inferno monster after you use it, so you can special summon first, though. So you have to get your board set up before you activate Void Vanishment with your Zodiac plays, if that's what you're going to do, which is just fine. You can also use the effect of this card to you can send it to the graveyard to banish both yours and an opponent's monster when an Infernoid battle, so you can use that as a removal effect if need be. Void Imagination is sneakily disgusting. It makes all your Infernoids level 1 when they're in play, all the ones that are greater than level 1 is how it's ordered. So you're able to fill your board up with Infernoids, removing that restriction from the cards. Additionally, your opponent takes half damage. Is that what it is? Yeah, all battle damage they inflict to your opponent is halved, but when you're able to swarm the board like that, it doesn't really matter all the time. You also can send this card to the graveyard if your opponent has an extra deck monster in play and you do not, to send up to 6 Infernoid monsters from your deck to the graveyard to fusion summon Infernoid Tiara, which is really strong, just filling up our graveyard and giving us a 3,400 beater. We also have a copy of Foolish Burial. This can get snow in a graveyard or whatever Infernoid we need specifically, so it's just a powerful enough fixing effect to play. We have a copy of 1-for-1, which can get us Decatron, which can then become whatever effect we need it to or whatever level we need it to. And we have Regeki, which we can search up with Left Arm Offering if what we really need to do is just clear our opponent's board. Finally, for our traps, we have 3 Void Feast. I'm not playing D-Barrier in this deck. I chose to just go with cards to give us a more consistent opening. I'm also not playing the Swords of Revealing Light trap card, though I think that is a really sweet addition to the deck. Void Feast lets us discard a card from our hand, or not a card from our hand, a Void Speller Trap from our hand or face up from the field or graveyard, and we special summon up to 3 Inferno monsters from our deck whose total levels equal 8. So we get 2 Strat and 2 Decatrons, or we can do some other combination, whatever. You're basically just going to want to get Decatrons into play with this, so you can set up a board that's able to negate your opponent's effect on top of having Drive in play. So it's really powerful. I hate playing traps normally, but I think this is such a strong card that it's worth playing, and it's searchable, so that gives it a little bit more legs. So this deck is really strong. It's very synergy based because we're looking to find one of the ways to put cards into our graveyard. Let's talk about the extra deck a little bit while we're at it. We have Tiara, which I already talked about a little bit. It's just our Void Imagination target and lets us put 1,000,000 cards into our graveyard. So if you do it with stakes just by sending them from your deck, each player also sends the top 3 cards from their deck to the graveyard. Excuse me. Let's apply each of these effects, right? Yeah. You also send 3 cards from the extra deck of each player to the graveyard, so it can really mess with some stuff. If you use 8, meaning you send more cards from your field or hand to the graveyard with Void Imagination, each player returns 3 of their banished cards to the graveyard, and if you manage to get all the way up to 10, everyone discards their entire hand. That probably won't happen, but it could, and then you hellbend your opponent and have a 3,400 beater in play. We have Nodin to go with our instant fusions. We have the Zodiac package, which is 1 Boarbow, 1 Tiger Mortar, 1 Broadbull, and 1 Dryden. Just one of each. You definitely can make a case for playing a second copy of Dryden. I've mentioned this in other decks too, I think, just to give yourself a little more longevity with the combo and not force you to Emerald extremely early. With those, for our rank 4s, we can end on after we combo off of those. We have Kagasuchi to mill out our deck a little more, Emerald to put stuff back in should we choose to make the standard Zodiac opener, and Castell to clear out our opponent's board. We also have our rank 3 package, which is Totem Bird, Break Sword, and Invoker. Invoker being the way that Terratop sets up our play. We also have a copy of F-Zero Utopic Future, so that we're able to turn our rank 4s, or if we happen to have 2 rank 3s in play, into a rank 1 monster, so we're able to summon more Infernoids by clearing out our levels. And we have 2 copies of Omega, which we can make with Decatron, and they help us loop our snows, or our Infernoid monsters, by putting them back into our bin and just getting rid of our opponent's hand. So I think this deck is extremely powerful. I feel like I've droned on for a while about it now, actually, so I'm just going to kind of try to wrap things up. There's a decent number of space for you to make innovations in the deck. Not a lot of cards in here are actual, necessary staples in the deck. Like, as long as you keep the Grass Looks Greener in your stack of Infernoids and the Zodiac cards, like, you can change a lot of the cards in the deck. You can play more Dark Holes. You can play a different Zodiac package. You could cut Pot. You could play more traps. You could play Maxi and Ghost Ogre. I did choose to exclude both Maxi and Ghost Ogre, even though I actually think they're not bad cards in this deck, because you're discarding your whole hand with Left Arm Offering anyway. So when you go first, if you have Left Arm Offering, you're playing without hand traps for the entire game. If you go second and you wanted to use a hand trap and then make a play before you Left Arm Offering, like if you Ghost Ogre them, that might not work. Maxi, that's less applicable too, because it's going to replace itself almost every time you activate it. But you're playing 60 cards, and I don't think that the low chance of opening a useful hand trap outweighs just playing more engine cards where we can get our deck milling. So I chose to exclude them in favor of that. But there are, like I said, a lot of different angles you can take with the deck. Let me know what you guys think down below. I don't think this is like a perfect end-all be-all list of the deck, obviously. There are a lot of different ways you can go with it, but I do think this has given me the most consistent openings of any build, which playing things like a second Whiptail are kind of counterintuitive to, so maybe that's a flaw in my logic right there that we could change one slot. But I think this is a very powerful deck. I think this is a solid list. If you guys are looking to add this to your testing gauntlet, I would definitely consider doing so. I think it's one of the most powerful decks in the format after Pure Zoo, so you should definitely be prepared to play against it. Let me know what you guys think down below. If you have any questions about the deck, feel free to ask. I'd love to answer them. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll have more content coming soon.